got New Jersey represented with not Mike, but with Naomi, and I am Scout with the Missouri AT Project. And thank you all for joining today. But I am going to start this session with a joke for Mike's benefit in his absence. Last night I did ask my Amazon device to tell me a joke, and this is what she gave me. What do you call an X-wing pilot who has done too many barrel rolls? Puke Skywalker. Okay. And from there, we will go on to better things. All right. So first off, does anybody have anything that they want to bring to the group today? Is there some burning? Oh, Ken, great.
Okay. I just want people to be aware of some of the stuff that I'm working on. It's going to become official, hopefully at the end of the month, though what you can access it even now. So I've been working for about 6 months with therapists. This is all DIY. There's no profit motive in this at all. So it's all open source DIY. And I've been working on taking the concept of 3D printed tactile symbols to a new level. So I first saw the Project Core tactile symbols several years ago, and it's been eating into my mind for a long time that this should be done better, differently. I don't want to make anyone feel bad about the symbols they have. Anyway, so I brought together some therapists, and we talked about an initial effort that stalled. I stalled it because I didn't think it was robust enough to move forward with. And then I went in a wholly different direction. This is some of the results. So
pull them out of the bag. Pull them out of the bag.
I'll show you what they are.
Oh.
I just want to show you. This is just the tip of the iceberg. So the Project Core symbols, there are 36 of them. And I think they're just trying to make sure you get certain words into children's vocabulary so they can communicate better. So this is a small set. And these symbols are based on the Bliss symbol or Bliss symbolics, which is a conceptual constructed language that's been out there for about 60 years now. And it has an international standards body that is behind these symbols. Here's some more symbols. And I've turned them into raised graphics so that they can be felt. Here's another one. The idea is that you use this conceptual language to teach blind, visually impaired, maybe deafblind individuals to communicate with. I think there's even some value here for people on the autism spectrum. But it's a full-fledged language. So it's not just 36 shapes. And in my opinion, 36 shapes that have to be learned rote, but a full-fledged conceptual language where there is a core set of concepts, often represented with some sort of simple line pictogram. And then you build more complex concepts by either superimposing those or concatenating them into strings of symbols, but there's still a single concept. So anyway, so now I've got several TVIs and SLPs working with me this fall, and I have been and am still working on getting these symbols into their hands and into their classrooms. This is the most important part of this story that I want to talk about, is just expose you to this concept that you don't, if you're working with children like that, or you know someone's working with children or adults who can benefit from tactile symbols, they don't have to be limited to, like I say, a set of random shapes, but they're actually a language instead, and building language. They don't have to be limited to the traditional tactile symbols, which is real world objects hot glued on a piece of cardboard that you just use your best imagination to try and represent something, but rather a language that has been around and is managed at an international level. And there are a set of core symbols that are already blessed for your use. But it's a generative language, meaning it's tempting and easy to extend it based on things you already know. So then that's part one, and it's the bigger part. But I also wanted to share with you the other thing I've been working on, and I got some help from people, two guys at Makers Making Change. One guy is a really good C language programmer, which means he can program Arduinos well. And the other guy is a structural engineer, so he does 3D modeling really well. And me, I just have an idea and I push people to make it easier and easier and easier to implement. So in this black box, which is again a DIY thing, you buy the components and you assemble the components. The most technical part of this is printing the enclosure. Inside this are off-the-shelf components, about $125 worth of components that you can assemble in, if you're not talking as much as I did during the instructional video, you can do it in half an hour. And all you need are a few screwdrivers and a scissors, piece of paper, and follow instructions. So it's all held together by tightening down bolts and parts that are available off the shelf. Anyway, what this does is it has a sensitive area up here on the top. What's behind that little sensitive area is an RFID reader, RFID tag reader. And you take a tag that has been encoded with a word or set of words, and you either, in the case of these guys, embed it in the shape, or you can have it on a key fob, or they make card RFID ones that look like a credit card kind of. All these things are really inexpensive, about 30 cents a piece. Or they have these little discs. So if you had a plush toy or something, you just open up the stitching a little bit, shove this inside after you've, well, you could encode it after you've even got it inside. But what happens is you bring the tag, I'm hoping you can hear this. You bring the tag within proximity or touch the surface and you get
Can.
I don't know if you heard that, and I can turn it up some more. But that was the word can, because that's what the symbol, that's what the concept on the symbol represents. Okay, can I get in there? I'm using a screwdriver to change the volume level here. So let's get nice and close. Oops, that's the wrong one. Come on, babe. All right, live demos. My battery died all this time. Anyway, that's the idea. I have no idea why that's, there it goes, it's waking up again.
Can.
And so every word, every concept.
Same.
Let me turn it this way.
Same.
So I'm hoping you can hear that. But every one of these has a little RFID tag in it that's been encoded, but you can encode anything. Or you can put a tag in just about anything, and you can just have free floating cards that have an image on them or something like that. And the card has been encoded. So it's just another way to communicate. $125 worth of parts. You can assemble it off the shelf. Anyone can assemble it in half an hour. My therapist came up with the name Voice It for it. So that's what it's called. Just wanted to let you know those kinds of things are out there, going to be out there. DIY.
So Ken, where's this language from? I don't know anything about it.
So
I'm
yeah,
just a little curious.
look up Bliss Symbolics Communication International.
List?
Bliss Symbolics, BLISSY Symbolics, whatever
Okay.
the letters are.
Right.
Communications International. It's
Okay.
based on a language developed around shortly after World War II by a fellow by the name of Charles Bliss, who was an Austrian who managed to survive the concentration camps, and then he moved from there to the Far East, and he discovered pictorial languages for the first time, conceptual languages. And so he was very, very big on creating languages that first were not tied to a particular culture or a particular set of peoples, countries, that were purely conceptual and that defied being used for propaganda, because so the language itself says you have to indicate when you're giving your opinion, when a concept is of the opinion level. That's part of the symbol. It says, this is my opinion. So anyway, but the beauty is that it was then taken and used with individuals with disabilities. So there's an entire movie on that. You'll be able to find it on YouTube. I think it's called The Symbol Man or something like that. It's about Charles Bliss and the people in Canada who were using his language with children with developmental and motor disabilities. I'm just taking that same thing and saying, I think it's useful as a tactile language because it's so simple from a stroke standpoint, the shapes that are in it. So there's not a lot of cognitive processing required to understand the shape and capture the entire shape in working memory, as opposed to other things that someone might have that are much, including the project core set.
Well, and I'd like too that it's to me less abstract too, if you can hold it in your hand with the speech output.
Mm-hmm.
That's such a cool idea. And the speaker then, if you needed it to be louder, for example, I would imagine you just choose a speaker that had greater output.
Well, it's hard to do this over a webcam, but this is really fairly loud in person. And what I would actually say is you probably need to turn it down, because if you were doing this in a classroom, people would be disturbing each other.
Mm-hmm.
So you probably actually have it down and someone would have their head a little closer to the box itself when they were using it. I think you'd be satisfied with the volume. I'm not quite sure how webcams, I usually talk very loud when I'm on a conference anyway, because I figure people can't hear you if you don't. Yeah.
Ken, I'm curious. I mean, I knew nothing about Bliss Symbolics until like a year and a half ago. How commonly it's being used still in education. I mean, it was striking to me, like when it came to my attention a year and a half ago, I was like, wow, I'd never heard of it. So I'm curious what the spread of it is.
Yeah, so it's popular outside of the US. And that says something about the US as far as I'm concerned.
Bliss Symbols was around before, it predates Boardmaker, and then when Boardmaker came out, that's when Bliss Symbols kind of disappeared. But it was my first communicative experience was with Bliss Symbols. I was putting it in there, and I had a young man, 14, up at camp, and he must have had a tray of 250 symbols, and he could talk faster than you and I could ever talk on an iPad communication device with that board. You know, he knew what he was, where everything was, and it was amazing, and it was a very robust language for him. But he had a board, you know, a tray table that was larger than the normal, than his normal size of a tray table would be in order to communicate. So that's that. I put in the chat, the blisssymbol.org's international website, and I found the YouTube video for Simple Man. So they're up in the chat.
Okay, good.
Thank you, Lori.
I can send out the link to my webpage where I document this project, and it includes some quotes about why
That's
the
awesome.
symbols, and it includes my personal opinion about why the board maker, actually Mayor Johnson symbols, are problematic. But none of those things translate easily into the tactile realm anyway. But yeah, I'll include that as well.
Thank you. That'd be great.
That's all I had, Scott.
Okay. Anybody else have anything they want to bring up? Because if you don't, I do, but I want to give everybody a chance. So anybody got anything? All right. So while Ken was talking, Gretchen has joined us. Gretchen, yeah, you got a mic. Great. So hey. So Gretchen is a friend and shot me an email a little while ago saying, hey, look what I did, and made a ramp, like a bowling ball ramp, but for bocce. So there's a great link, and if we're clever, we can get it into the chat before we're done. But then said to me yesterday over email, hey, it didn't work. And I was like, oh man, have I got a group for you? So what I was hoping is that we could have Gretchen describe the ramp and what didn't work about it, and maybe we'll have some ideas to help make it work for her son. So thanks for joining us, Gretchen.
Hi, you're welcome. My son, he does not push things well. A lot of times with bowling, what we do is we set the ball on top of the ramp, and then he puts his hand on top, and then he lets go, and then we have it high. We have the ramp. We use some risers for bowling that you use for risers for bed, and that just puts it up enough height to where the ball will roll down and it will go. And he does great at bowling. He averages a little over 100 every game, so it's great. So we thought this concept would work the same for bocce. And we practice with our Special Olympics group here at the Cosmo Park. And it was working great on gravel. We just couldn't quite get it the distance we wanted to. So we went also to the Special Olympics place in Jeff City and tried it on AstroTurf. The problem we had is the ball would go down the ramp, and then once it hit the AstroTurf, the speed would slow down, and we couldn't get it to the length that it needed to be in a legal game. So it wasn't getting to the Polina at all. So we had to shorten, which they're more than happy to accommodate us, but then that puts us in a category of trying to find an athlete he can compete with, and that becomes a little harder. We did raise up the ramp, the bocce ramp that we made, but the struggle we were having, the higher we got, the more speed we could get, but we couldn't get enough speed to keep the momentum once it got off the ramp. We talked about doing like we've done this before in school, where there's the switch option, where there's a little lever that goes in front of the ball. He hits the switch, the lever lets up, and the ball goes. Well, that doesn't solve the problem because it gives the ball no more momentum to go down the ramp. And then it's not him participating. He's just hitting a switch. So how is he connecting with what he's doing?
Mm-hmm.
So we don't think that we can get him convinced on how, or get him to figure out how to push harder because he pulls back a lot. He wants to pull the ball back more so than he wants to push it forward. So that is my challenge, is to figure that out, is we want to raise it up, but we still want him to be able to reach it so that he can at least put his hands on it and let off and the ball will go. So we're struggling with height and speed.
So I've had the advantage of 24 hours on this. The part of the problem that we have is that the PVC connectors have two angles, 45 and 90. And so this ramp is made with this elbow, well, this, whatever this is called, the 45, correct, Gretchen? Yeah, so we can't really change that angle much. And you can't go to a 90 because then if you've got it, then you're, shooting it straight down, which of course is not helpful. So it's helpful for me because I was like, what is Blake, what is his kind of strengths or active role? And that was the part that I was unsure of, because I was thinking, what if, sorry, I put all my pieces back together. And please, if somebody else has some stuff, working on things actually for work, and so I have to take them apart for other things. So what if we had a really short, hold on, I got a shorty somewhere.
I like, somebody put in the chat box about what about a 60-degree 3D printer part?
Oh, of course, Ken is gonna.
That would be
the
great, but I don't
smart
have a
one.
3D printer.
It wasn't you?
Not
No.
Ken, not Ken, it was me.
Oh, well,
And
Lord,
I only got
I'm-
my 3D printer yesterday and I don't have a power cord to plug it in with.
I just, I'm sorry, I default to Ken because anytime I do anything, he's like, 3D print that, please. Right? I was actually thinking two elbows to make this one have a steeper angle. You would just start with this kind of bent and then have some kind of lever that he would push to, get him going down this ramp.
Hey, Scott,
Yeah, but 3D
I just
printing
put this in, in the chat, but I don't think the angle matters.
Oh,
Because you're still dealing with potential energy. You have this thing at a certain height. So no matter how you get it to the ground, I mean, you can talk about how much friction is involved because of the path, but once it gets to the ground, it either has a vector of force this way or a vector of force this way. And that the potential energy is then distributed over those two vectors.
right, okay.
So what you really need is a different kind of potential energy to be available to you. Like if you think of something like, when an archer pulls back the bow, they're shooting it straight out. There is no potential energy relative to gravity. It's all in the string. So can you add other forms of potential energy to this thing in preparation for its release? Like, can you put it on a band of some kind? And what he does is he releases the band. Now you have a lot of control over how much power is behind that ball because you have different bands. Now I use them in physical therapy. So is there a set place where you could build more potential energy into this thing? The angle, I don't think is going to have any impact. If you put it at a steeper angle, it just hits the ground harder and probably rolls shorter.
Right.
I was, and maybe this sounds very Wile E. Coyote, but I was also thinking about a like pinball plunger. Like, would you be able to have something? I know that Gretchen mentioned he doesn't pull well, but would there be something that if you could assist him with the pull, does he have good release? Or is that, that gives him that mechanical advantage? Like Ken said, I'm sorry, my dog apparently wants to chime in as well. So I was thinking either like that, or, and this is probably really off the wall, if you mentioned he pulls more than he pushes, bocce balling backwards. Like, is there a way to get him to pull it down the ramp I know it's hard to aim. I haven't figured that part out yet, but like, if he could pull, then, I think about bolt, like it's a much less physics oriented idea than Ken's. Same idea, but without the good science behind it. I don't know.
Yeah, so he's got potential energy in the chemicals in his body. So
Yeah.
yes, he could pull it forward and turn that into kinetic energy.
Yeah.
Or you have other forms of potential energy, which are springs. Yeah, that's your pinball.
My pinball.
idea.
Yeah.
Mm.
But yeah, so any other way you could build potential energy into that ramp.
I like the idea of the band thing, the pulling back the band, just because he will grab and release so quickly that I don't even think you could get it all set up for him to grab and release, if that makes sense. For the he's not one to hold for too long. But I like that I have some of those exercise bands that you talk of that we could
Right.
potentially think about that.
Yeah, think of a slingshot and how it works. So it has a little piece of leather that the rock sits in. That could be your bocce ball, and then you can attach something to the leather, pull it back. That's what archers do. They just have a thing they release. They just hit a little lever, and that releases the whole thing. I remember having to actually hold it with your fingers, and that hurt. But no, they just have a little thing. They just release it. Boom! It's so easy. He could do that same sort of thing. But yeah, sorry, Scott. I know you had put on a full 24 hours into this.
No. And actually I talked to my wife about it too, and she was like, he needs a wanger,
Oh,
but that same thing, just adding that potential
a
energy.
catapult or a
Yeah.
ricochet. That'd be
Yeah,
dangerous.
that's the
what I was
hardest
thinking.
thing
Can
is
he
not
hit?
to take
Because
away.
you hit down on a seesaw type thing and it make it go, or whack sideways. That's another idea.
The only thing is I'm trying to get him to not lose the concept of what he is doing.
Right.
Right.
And so that's where I'm struggling, is because I could probably make something where it could just catapult it for him. But what does that mean for him? Because he does switches and he knows cause and effect. So, but does he understand that there's no noise to go behind that cause and effect that he could really understand, I think,
Mhm.
enough to understand what is actually happening is my
Because
thought.
you kind of want him to have hand on the ball. So as soon as you put a strap around an exercise band, and if he can't, as I recall, he doesn't have good vision, correct?
Correct.
So he's
Correct.
not watching that ball leave. He needs to feel that ball leave. Yeah.
Yeah, he goes off of feel and hear.
But
Mhm.
if you built the ramp so that I'm almost picturing like a channel for the bocce ball that almost has a very slight backward tilt, so that if you make this slingshot, we keep talking about catapulting. I feel like now we're in shot put, but like if it could roll back into that loop, you set the bocce ball, he pulls that. I mean, that doesn't put his hand on the ball,
Yeah.
but it allows him to like have that control of, and you don't want to make it like flat so it doesn't roll on its own. You don't want to make it tilted way back or you lose all the benefit. Just enough that it would come back when he pulls that band.
And if you think about how bocce players play, it's a toss. So they do an underhand toss of the ball. So the idea of it coming down a ramp, I'm not sure that adds anything other than being able to position the ball up where he can get it. But if you had it on a chute of some kind, so that it's already at his height and coming directly out, that's more in keeping with how bocce's played, actually.
Oh.
There's no reason, in bowling, that thing better get down pretty quickly to the wood, otherwise you're going to damage the wood. But in bocce, you're just going onto a grass lawn. So it could fly directly straight out. And then you have you need much less of a surface, a directing surface, and therefore less friction along the way there too. So just
So that,
don't limit yourself to ramps in thinking
so
through that.
that would be just like a, I think of like a raised, aqueduct. So you have a
Yeah.
half a PVC pipe.
Yep.
That is, you would just set your ball on up at his level, and
Right.
it would barely be angled down. It would
It
only be about
It
2
could even
feet
be angled
long.
back a little bit so that the ball is retained at one end where he is.
Right.
So, a 4-degree slope like they have in plumbing. So, and then it actually launches up a little bit. You get a little parabolic flight.
And
But
how is he pushing it?
well, again, he's either pushing it or there is a support band that he pulls back a little bit and releases. He could have his hand on the ball pulling the band back if having his hand on the ball is a critical part of this.
I don't know if he could
I'm
keep it on
wondering if
there.
there's some way you could set it to where the band is back, and then once we put the ball on the band, he put his hand on top and then he lets up and it releases.
It would just mean someone else does the release of the band. So now the band is pressing on the ball and the only thing holding it there is his hand.
That is definitely an idea I didn't think of.
Experiment with that. It's just, the fact is you got potential energy in 2 forms there, gravity plus the band. And that's what you're going to get out of the flight of this ball. The less friction you have from the ground, the better. From the ramp, the better.
How far does the ball have to travel, Gretchen? Or approximately?
The court is 30 feet, and I think they try to go to the middle of the court, so 15.
And so he has to be, I've only played bocce once a very long time ago. He has to be then approximately 15 feet away from where the ball has to start 15 feet from where he wants it to land. Is that correct?
You're testing my knowledge and I don't know all the rules yet.
Yeah. Who knows more about bocce?
Not me.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
can't tell you the rules, but there is, did anybody watch the Paralympics and the bocce ball tournaments?
No.
It already exists. There is adapted bocce for our disabled individual, forgive me for the word, individuals out there. It's a whole league. It's international. They use tubes, and they have an aimer person, and the person who's shooting tells the person how to aim and where they want it aimed. And there's a whole bunch of ways to release and stuff. I'm trying to look for the website.
That's the place to start here.
Yeah, that's where
There's already something out there.
It
Then
already
you can come
exists.
up with a DIY version of it.
My elementary school kids, we used to play our non-disabled peers every year in a tournament. I'm not there anymore. That was another state. But I'm trying to find that link so that you have it. Because we used to adapt all this.
The one that you found was just, adapted bowling for bocce, and it doesn't sound like it's the right.
Yeah, that therapist was trying to adapt a ramp that could be used for bocce or for
Totally
bowling.
get it.
Yeah.
Totally get it. Multi-purpose use, absolutely.
Yeah, but for his ability, it's just not going to be the thing. So yeah, that would be great to find out what's already being done.
Yeah, I'm looking for the
You can
site.
bet they've already optimized those.
Right.
Well, and apparently there's a bocce ramp you can buy, but it's
Yeah.
so expensive that the Special Olympics is like, we would like to not have to put that much money. And I said, I don't blame you. He's the only one that bowls ramp bowling. And so they've
Right.
never had a ramp bowler before.
Right. I'll find it. I'll get it to the chat when I find it.
Awesome.
I just appreciate how much they're willing to try to figure it out so that he can participate in the sport, which is a rarity sometimes.
All right. Well, while we kind of wait
Yeah,
for
there's a
Lori to be
Perkins site.
our Google for that, is there anything else? We are just past 11:30. Is there anything else anybody wants to share in this, or talk about, bring up, discuss anything?
I have another thing.
Go ahead.
I was wondering, how can I find, because therapists have used it. They've taken like a plexiglass and they've cut out holes for my son's jelly bean switches. Do any of you know where you could DIY that yourself? Because I'm struggling to find because I don't know exactly, I don't have a lot of tools and I don't have a lot of knowledge on that kind of thing. So trying to figure out how to make one and then not make it so big, like all the therapists are big for table size. And I just want one small enough that we can travel with.
How does it work? Does somebody already know what this is?
Describe it, Gretchen, please.
It is like a flat piece of plexiglass, and she has cut out holes. And that the biggest problem my son has with switches when he uses jelly bean switches is that he likes to play with the cord more than he does the switch. So putting this piece over just exposes the switch, so it allows him just to activate the switch.
Okay.
So it's just a piece of plexiglass with one hole or a series of holes?
You can have one, you can have as many holes as you want to put in
You
it.
have switches underneath, and this sits above the switch, so it's raised up a couple inches, so the switch can fit underneath, right? So it must have some kind of support on the sides that raise the plexiglass up. It just sits on the switches, just the switches hold it up. That's interesting.
So is there any reason you couldn't just use something like foam board?
Corrugated plastic.
Right. I mean,
Oh, I didn't think of
foam
the
board would be
corrugated
easier to
plastic.
cut than plastic, but yeah, anything stiff, because he doesn't have to
Okay.
see what's underneath, correct?
No.
And you
Yeah.
So my
said-
question would be is how do I cut the perfect circle? With what?
What do you call
Roto
it?
zip.
They-
Get a cup or a, what is this? It's not a compass.
Yeah.
Protractor, what are they called? It's been a long time since high
Or
school.
you,
A thumbtack with a string on it,
Right,
with a
that'll do it.
pencil, and you can go around.
Make the circle. I just don't know if I have what in my toolbox of little.
Dremel. A Dremel.
how big a hole?
Which jelly
How-
beans?
How thick is your material?
Well, I mean, it makes a difference how much of the switch you want to expose, whether you want them hitting the center or by chance hitting some part that isn't sensitive. So they make, what the heck are they called? They're drill attachments.
Oh,
They
yeah.
have a circular end on them and a little central drill. And you just put on your drill and you go zip right through the hole. And it's a nice, perfect hole size. I'm sure it would go quickly through this material.
Very quickly.
You use it
And-
for making holes for door handle attachments, things like that.
And Gretchen, Justin should have one because I bought one when I was at SIL. That you could
By all
start
means.
with. That way you don't have to buy one, just to start. And the other thing is start with cardboard and see how big you want it before you decide,
They're called hole saws.
full sauce.
Full saws. Okay.
they
And
come-
my thought would be to put, if you're using cardboard or corrugated plastic, put a solid piece underneath. And then make a sandwich. So the piece with the hole is above, attach the sides, and that's gonna hold the switch stable in whatever. Does that make sense? Like you could do that with Velcro even.
Oh, yeah.
And
You could
then
use
it'd
some
be
Velcro
easy
too.
to like pop it in and out, but that way, it would hold it nice and stable.
And then, yeah, one question I was wondering is how, because it would be ideal if I could then I could have just attached Dyson on the bottom and then it would be stable. But one of the struggles I've had, just bringing up another question is I've had with Dyson is how to attach it permanently to a surface. I've struggled with
Permanently?
with many different glues to trying to stick it to the bottom of something so it won't, it'll go with the object whenever I move it, if that makes sense.
I think we've had success with Gorilla Glue. I know I had a couple students who did a project last year and I'm trying to remember how they attached it, but it was not coming off.
Have
I
you-
tried with super glue and I tried with hot glue, and I have not had success with either one of those.
Non-abrasive
Look,
grip
I
tape.
finally have something to contribute. So it's called cat tongue.
Oh,
And it's, check this out. It's tape, but it's really tacky. And it gives you that sort of abrasive edge. It's not quite as sticky as Dyson, I think, but just as an example, I have the iPad sitting on it right now, and here I am pushing, and it's not going anywhere.
So it's stable but removable, Carrie? Is that what you're saying?
It's it has a sticky back on it, so you attach it to. I had it on my phone. You attach it to whatever it is that you want to stabilize, and then it gives you that sort of grippiness on the other side.
Very cool. I haven't seen that.
so you would attach that to the back of your board, and then it would stick instead of Dyson onto the tray or whatever.
Mhm.
That
I'm
might
pretty
be,
sure it was from Amazon.
I was
Cool.
just going to Amazon to look it up.
Yeah, and it won't last forever. I think probably you replace it after 6 months, I'm thinking, because I had it on my phone and I see that I took it off at some point.
that might be interesting.
I will definitely give
I
that a try.
didn't
Thank
write it
you.
down. What? Tell me again what it's called.
Cat tongue, because it's rough.
Right.
Get some really interesting results when you search cat tongue in Amazon. When it's on there. It's about 3 or 4 rows down.
That's
Cat
why
tongue
you put
grip.
in non-abrasive
tongue
grip
grip.
tape underneath it.
Thanks, Ken. That's a really cheap set.
Yeah, maybe the one I own, so I'm cheap.
I put a bunch of links for international bocce, or boccia is how you spell the adapted. It's got an IA instead of an E on the end. One is to move sports, and if you drop down to the bottom, all the manuals and directions are in there, but there's also a link for the different parts that you can use. And then there's another link to USA Bocce Association, which may help you locally. So.
Okay, so now
Hey,
everyone
thank you.
remember to go in and save the chat.
Chat.
Yeah, I just saved mine. So
How do you save a chat? I haven't ever done that.
It's
you
a
go,
little
there's
hamburger.
like a paper, it looks like a smiley face, and then the 3 dots down in the chat, and the 3 dots or more. When you click that, comes up an option to save the chat. Okay,
I am so excited I joined this group today. Thank you so much.
I'm glad we finally got you in. I will admit, I sent Gretchen the wrong link. We both signed up for October. I came in like 5 minutes to 11 going, oh crap, and knew where to go to get in, and I had to text her during the thing to get her in. So, all right. I'm gonna have to step out, but if you guys want to keep going, you know, there's more time, and I believe Naomi's willing to stick around. So I am going to bid you all adieu, and thank you all very much for your input. And Ken, I'm looking forward to reading what you put in the chat. Actually, all of it. Okay, well, everybody, I have to figure out how to leave. All right.
And did you put a link to your symbols in the chat?
I put a link to the webpage for that project.
Got it.
It's the Volkswitch
Got it.
Let's Tackle Symbols one.
Thank you.
And Gretchen, please come back and tell us like what happened.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
will. I will. Our last bocce practice is next Tuesday, and then we have state games on Saturday. So we're trying to figure this all out before state games.
But no pressure.
No.
No.
Gretchen, I'm going to give you my email. Give me a buzz.
Okay,
Okay.
cool. Thank you guys so much for your help. I really appreciate it.
Oops, if I can spell my own agency right. I think I spelled it right.
So if
Yeah,
I
we-
save this chat, where do I find it later?
It goes to a folder. It'll tell you, you can go show in folder, and mine saves in documents, Zoom, and then the date. and then there's a meeting saved in that folder.
Oh,
And
okay.
it will save as like a rich text file.
Right.
So I find I usually need to convert them to Word just to make them a little easier to deal with for me,
Mhm.
but at least all the info's there.
Cool, thank you. Now, do you have to save every time somebody puts something new into the chat?
Just save at the end before you close,
Oh, okay.
before they close us out. And you get the whole,
Cool. Thank you. I learned so many new things today.
Cool.
good. All right, I'm gonna bounce. Have a great day, everyone.
Gonna say, I'm gonna head out to work, but
Yeah.
thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining. It is that time unless someone has last minute things they would like to share. If not, we are going to call it a wrap. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
again, Gretchen, for sharing.
You bet.